AOC says so many people in this country hate women. Oh, geez. Even the guy at the party who pulls out a guitar is like, way to ruin the fun. Congressman Jamal Bowman says capitalism is slavery by another name. No, it's not. It's the thing that has given more people more prosperity and hope than any other system, flawed though it surely is. But again, something like the free market is kind of synonymous with America. And if you don't like it, I don't know how you can say you love this country. You know who loves this country? You know who's not constantly complaining about what happened 200 years ago and who's not obsessed with seeing America through colored glasses and shaking off the stench of what irredeemable privileged holes we are? Immigrants.
Bill Maher is not backing off AOC, and honestly, he believes he has good reason not to. In his view, she is slowly being prepared to become the future face of the DNC, and if that happens, he thinks the Democrats are heading straight for disaster. Years ago, Maher sounded the same warning about Kamala Harris. Democrats ignored him completely, and the 2024 election ended up proving his point the hard way. Now he is raising the alarm again, this time focused on what he calls AOC's anti-America narrative. His criticism is brutal, precise, and completely unforgiving. So let's break it all down.
AOC, Mamdani are not Democrats. They'll be the first to tell you that. They're democratic socialists, and that's a very different thing, and I don't think people know that yet. I don't think people realize we already have a lot of socialism. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, unemployment insurance, food stamps, veterans benefits, Pell Grants, COVID-era payments, farm subsidies, disability payments, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, corporate bailouts, and the jobs program that is building weapons the Pentagon doesn't even want.
Bill Maher keeps going after AOC, and from his perspective, there is a solid reason why. If you have followed AOC lately, you have probably noticed the pattern. She and New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani seem completely aligned, and their partnership grows more obvious every week. Recently, both appeared in a video encouraging New York parents, regardless of immigration status, to sign their children up for the city's free preschool and childcare programs. But the bigger picture matters more than the clip itself. Mamdani built much of his campaign around free childcare, teamed up with Governor Hochul to expand it further, pushed to abolish ICE, and proudly supports sanctuary city policies. When you connect all the dots, the direction becomes hard to miss. That is exactly what has Bill Maher worried. He is not attacking programs that help families. America already uses many social programs to soften the rough edges of capitalism. But charging headfirst toward full-scale socialism, according to Maher, is dangerous territory with no safe exit.
And a deadly one.
The DSA are radicals about this concept, and radical economic policy is always ineluctably married to radical social policy. Their platform, for example, calls for completely open borders. They're for what Biden was doing, but more. You think you're going to win an election on that? This just seems like more extremism at a time when Americans are begging both parties, please, could just one of you act normal?
If Biden already made people uneasy, Maher thinks AOC operates on an entirely different level. Put the two side by side and the difference becomes impossible to ignore. Biden, despite all his mistakes, was still viewed as a moderate deep down. His border policies may have been messy, but he still believed some limits mattered. Boundaries existed. Rules still had a purpose. At least there was some effort to keep the border functioning. Imperfect, yes. Extreme, no. AOC tells a completely different story. She and members of the DSA are not simply tolerant of open borders. They openly support them. No hesitation, no restrictions. Where Biden might occasionally slow things down, AOC would remove the brakes entirely. That is not just a policy shift. That is a completely different vision for America. To Maher, the divide is enormous, and he fears Democrats still do not understand how radical their rising star actually is.
Okay, I say the next time we have debates, the moderator needs to frame that question a little differently, as say something about America that you like, because honestly, I don't know why the people who are fighting for this country so hard even want it anymore.
And honestly, this is what makes the entire situation feel so strange. Why would AOC want to lead a country she constantly criticizes? Think about that for a second. When people truly care about something, they do not spend every moment tearing it apart. But with AOC, the criticism never seems to stop. Constant, automatic, exhausting. It does not matter what Trump signs into law. It does not matter if jobs increase, the economy improves, or people finally start feeling relief financially, she still attacks it. Any camera, any microphone, any chance to speak, and she delivers another wave of outrage. No balance, no willingness to admit when something works. That is the deeper issue Maher keeps pointing toward. Honest criticism helps keep leaders accountable. That part is healthy. But constructive criticism and non-stop resentment are not the same thing. One comes from concern, the other feels rooted in bitterness. And voters notice the difference immediately.
A country that started out bad and will always be bad, founded on an unrelenting history of and unable to change. But we have changed a lot. Democrat Cori Bush tweeted, "This land is stolen land and black people still aren't free." And this was on the 4th of July. Really? Not that I give a shit about the 4th of July. I've never been a rah-rah guy. But I am a perspective guy. And that's what too much of the left has lost, perspective.
There is a moment in this discussion that many people probably overlooked, but it matters a lot. Democrats now sell America like it is some broken nightmare in order to keep their political message alive. Cruel, hopeless, beyond repair. And sometimes the narrative drifts into complete fantasy. Look at Joy Bush's recent tweet claiming black Americans are not truly free in the United States. Seriously, stop and think about that. This is a country where black Americans lead major corporations, hold seats in Congress, have served on the Supreme Court, and even reached the White House. Yet the argument being pushed is that they are somehow not free. That is not stretching the truth. That is completely twisting it, but this has become the strategy: magnify suffering, increase outrage, present America as something barely worth defending. And once criticizing your own country becomes your entire identity, there is really only one word left for it: contempt. Maher understands that, and honestly, a lot of Americans do too.
72% of black people under 30 are optimistic about their future in America. Way more than white people the same age. And as far as the land goes, yes, I guess we could change the name of Captain America to Captain Stolen Land. But honestly, to all the people who start every public event now with one of those land acknowledgments where they say, "I'm standing on land that was stolen from the proud indigenous people of the Chumash tribe," I say either give it back or shut the
Here comes another strong point from Maher, and this one hits hard. Politicians like AOC have mastered performance politics. Everything feels like carefully staged theater built to impress minority communities without actually improving their lives. Think about land acknowledgement speeches. The slow emotional speeches explaining how America was built on indigenous land. They sound deep, they sound emotional, they sound meaningful. Once the applause ends and the cameras disappear, nothing actually changes. No land gets returned, no communities are rebuilt, no long-term damage is repaired. Maher's argument is simple and direct. If someone highlights injustice but refuses to take real action afterward, then the speech is not activism. It is just performance, a way to appear morally superior without sacrificing anything real. That is not leadership, that is acting. And more voters are beginning to recognize the show.
AOC says so many people in this country hate women. Oh, geez. Even the guy at the party who pulls out a guitar is like, way to ruin the fun. Congressman Jamal Bowman says capitalism is slavery by another name. No, it's not. It's the thing that has given more people more prosperity and hope than any other system, flawed though it surely is.
Here is an honest question worth asking. Where exactly does AOC get the idea that America hates women? Is she basing it on Hillary Clinton losing in 2016 or Kamala Harris losing in 2024? Because if that is the argument, it feels incredibly weak and built on a convenient excuse. Most Americans do not enter the voting booth focused on gender. They vote based on solutions. Who can improve the economy? Who can secure the border? Who can make life easier for working families? Those are the questions that matter, and none of them depend on whether the candidate is male or female. Hillary and Kamala did not lose because they were women. They lost because millions of voters did not trust their leadership. That is not sexism. That is democracy functioning normally. Slapping the label "America hates women" onto an election loss is not bravery. It is avoidance. A way to dodge the harder conversation about why voters rejected them in the first place.
But again, something like the free market is kind of synonymous with America. And if you don't like it, I don't know how you can say you love this country. You know who loves this country? You know who's not constantly complaining about what happened 200 years ago and who's not obsessed with seeing America through colored glasses and shaking off the stench of what irredeemable privileged we are? Immigrants.
Now this part really deserves attention because the hypocrisy almost feels impossible to ignore. The loudest voices constantly calling America oppressive and broken suddenly became silent when their own political side held power. During Biden's presidency, according to AOC's world, everything was supposedly going great. The economy was strong, minority communities were thriving, women's rights were secure, businesses were succeeding. America was apparently doing just fine. Then Biden left office and suddenly overnight the country became a disaster. Now America is supposedly hateful, divided, and dangerous for women. Stop and think about that. A nation does not collapse from paradise into chaos in a matter of weeks. The only thing that actually changed was who controlled the government, and that exposes the real issue. The outrage was never truly about the country's struggles. It was about political power. That is not activism.
Ask any of them why they came here, and they will tell you the same thing. Ron DeSantis put me on a plane. But they will also tell you that America, for all that's so about it right now, is still the last best hope. And those people asking for our votes to take it over should remember that.
This may have been Maher's strongest point of the entire discussion. It cuts through every distraction instantly. AOC and her allies may not feel proud of America. They may believe it is politically useful to describe the country as broken, oppressive, and hopeless. But here is the reality they never want to address. The very immigrants they claim to fight for tell a completely different story. These are people who crossed oceans, deserts, and borders just for a chance at life in America. They are not arriving in a country they despise. They are arriving in a place they dreamed about for years. They know what life without American freedoms actually looks like. They experienced the alternative firsthand. Yet the people who have never lived without those freedoms are often the ones shouting the loudest that America is a failure. That contrast alone says more than any speech ever could.
If she had some deprogramming, she could be such a fantastic candidate.
What do you mean deprogramming?
Well, she just doesn't, she's never going to resonate with people outside of the bubble that she lives in the very, very far left.
So there you have it. Bill Maher, someone who has spent his entire life as a liberal, is not attacking America. In his mind, he is trying to save his own party from destroying itself. His message is simple and direct. You cannot lead a country you openly resent. You cannot win voters by exaggerating suffering, performing empty gestures, and constantly shouting oppression while offering no real solutions. AOC and the people around her are slowly pushing the Democratic Party toward a dangerous edge. And Maher believes he can already see the collapse coming. Will Democrats actually listen this time? Only time will answer that question. But if history tells us anything, they probably will not. And by 2028, they may find themselves facing the exact same disaster again. And with that, today's video comes to an end. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more direct and unfiltered discussions like this.